and you have a villain that blows everything up and allows us
That
to
is
come
crazy.
to
That is
be.
crazy to add on top of what I've always been talking about. If they could weaponize that, that is crazy to think
Well, and it's
about.
going to happen, and you can see it.
Yeah. And,
And they're
and
all positioning for it. That's why they're all buying gold.
welcome back, my friends. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Silver Slayer, so now let's talk silver. Every single Wednesday, Andy Scheckman and I upload a new episode of our weekly show. Andy, yesterday, in yesterday's episode, exposed some shocking information that really got the ball rolling in regards to the silver shortage and where all this gold and silver is heading. Where is it all going? Well, numbers don't lie, and there is a huge bleed down. And if you look at countries like Russia and China and Saudi Arabia and all these countries that are mixed into the BRICS nations and what their goals are with a digitalized currency backed by physical commodities, it makes sense. But then we went a little deeper. I was talking about the silver shortage, and what if they were using the gold and silver as a weapon against us going green, since we need silver for solar panels and 5G towers and EVs? If they have it all, we can't go that direction. And what makes this even more shocking and believable is when you realize that they wouldn't want America to go green. They have a lot of interest in keeping things the same as they are with diesel and oil. So it all makes sense, and it all is happening right before our eyes. Check this interview out. I highlighted some of the main points. I hope you enjoy this.
So I think it's starting to get to that point where things are going to get very real. And I think you can evidence this, the real part, by the massive bleed down of metals that we're seeing day in and day out. Now, the last time I talked with you, there were 36 million ounces of silver in the registered category. There is now under 34 million ounces of silver in the registered category. The registered category is being bled down. And, you know, when you talk about 50 million ounces were imported into India in September alone, um, you know, that's more than not only 35% of annual mine supply, but it's also more than the entire COMEX holds in the registered category, almost double what it's holding in the registered category. And so, you know, here again, we're seeing massive deliveries in gold and silver off of COMEX day by day by day, and out of the ETFs. One thing that's really interesting is that every single day lately, we have seen metal come out of the silver ETFs. And so, you know, to the tune of 1 to 2 million ounces every single day. In fact, just, I don't know, just a few days ago, I was reading an authorized participant took 2,578,000 ounces out of SLV. And when you look at what happened on Wednesday alone, of last week. And Wednesday alone of last week, according to Ed Steer, there was almost 60 million ounces of gold taken out of the ETFs and the exchanges, the Western exchanges, the LME and the COMEX, and almost 900,000 ounces of silver in one day. And this is what we see happening. And so put it all together.
Right.
You're seeing the smartest money in the world use price suppression to drain the shelves, not only of the LME, which is the lowest silver inventory since they started keeping record, but look at the registered category. There was 120 million of ounces of silver in the registered category during silver squeeze, and now we're down to 34. And you're talking a situation where the smart money is holding down the price with levered contracts and running away with all of the supply when no one's looking. And to add fuel to this, you have the commercial banks net long. You put it all together, the smartest money in the world is using price suppression to drain the shelves of all of the supply from every corner of the Western world. And the Eastern folks, well, they're wise to it too, because they're taking record deliveries. The Swiss are saying China's taking more imports of gold than ever. India's importing 50 million ounces of silver. They're all buying. Turkey bought more gold than any country on the planet the first 7 months of the year. You can see it's happening. And they're bleeding dry the exchanges. And prices being held down to misdirect people's assessment of reality. We have a perception of reality based upon manipulation of price that is allowing the smartest money in the world to reposition, but not just reposition into more debt instruments or derivatives. They're taking the real thing. And you can see it. And every day we're seeing 1 million or 2 million ounces coming out of SLV in deliveries by the authorized participants. It's getting crazy, man. And I think you add all of that together and then look at the supply in this industry and in the wholesale industry. And what you are seeing is the potential for the first time that I can really remember where maybe the physical demand overwhelms the paper suppression, because anyone in their right mind, like to manage money, that would be short in this environment when you can't find anything. I mean, supply is so tight right now, and it's being bled down off of COMEX, where in 1 month a country can take 1.5 times in deliveries, 1.5 times what is in the registered category. And if you put all of the metal together, which is eligible and registered, the eligible is not for sale, the registered is, you're talking a almost 300% paper to gold ratio, where there's 3 times the amount of paper, about 2.5 times the paper than there is the gold. You do the registered category only, which are the bars that can be delivered, it's almost 19 times more paper than gold. So 1 out of every 19 gets their silver, and 18 get the paper shaft. But long before that, the 18, I mean, they'd shut it down because we're this close to there being a real short squeeze, a real problem. And I don't know, it's getting interesting. This is time to buckle up. And when most people should be exchanging their dollars for silver and gold, it's never been harder to do it and more costly in terms of premium. And honest to God, I believe you ain't seen anything yet. I truly, truly believe that 2023 shows me no signs of easing up in supply chain issues and or in premium. So if things continue to go the way I think they
Yeah.
will, we're running out of time.
Yeah, I mean, how could premiums go down? The situation's only getting worse. It's going to be harder and harder to find silver, and even looking at spot price might not necessarily go up, but the price you have to pay out of pocket would. A lot of people, like someone, I think it was Ted Butler, talked about $50 silver, and I was like, even if silver doesn't hit $50, the spot price, what you got to pay out of pocket could still be $50. But regardless, producers are turning into the consumers, and the consumers are turning into the producers. The people like you and I that want the silver will be selling it to the people that need the silver. And since they need it and we have it, we could set the price and they have to pay whatever we want. And I think that's going to be happening more and more when big tech comes in. We're talking about Tesla's EV. Like every automobile company by the year 2030 is going to be electric. By that year, in 8 years from now, how are they going to? Where's that silver going to come from? Solar panel demand rose 15% this year. Like, where's that silver going to come from? And I couldn't imagine that mining innovation is going to fix that power. Recycling, that's wouldn't even put a dent in the amount of silver we'll need. I mean, by the year 2025, if we already exceeded 1.112 billion ounces this year, how many billions of ounces will we need by then? I don't think that people realize how scarce silver really is when you consider it's a byproduct. Most silver's thrown away. I don't see how this problem won't get exposed soon. You can't sweep it under the rug anymore. You can't. I've been talking about it for so many years, but I feel like right now people are finally getting it.
Only 35% of the supply is coming from primary mining
Yeah.
companies, which is a big problem as far as I'm concerned. The the big deposits were found a long time ago. But to your point, what makes it so intriguing to me is the fact that you have this growing industrial demand that is finding new applications every day
Yes.
in digital and in green. In expansion, you look at the Belt Road Initiative, which is connecting 75% of human population digitally as well, not just with roads and bridges and maritime channels, but digitally. So the need for connection, the need for silver, the need for a continuing growth in silver in this digital world that we live in this green world that we're transitioning to, which I have a feeling on that in a moment. But you also have a monetary demand. And what makes silver so unique is this duality that you
Yes.
understand, where maybe that's who's draining Comex. Maybe it is Elon Musk. Maybe it is Sony Corporation. Maybe it is Samsung. Maybe it is, these
That's a good
companies that
point.
realize they're dead in the water without silver. Now, to your point, one other thing, I talk a lot about Saudi Arabia and the moving away from the petrol reserve status, the antagonizing of the Saudis by threatening to remove the antitrust exemption for OPEC, calling it an act of aggression that they don't pump more oil, removing the Patriot missiles from United Arab Emirates and the Saudi border. Um, what you said, think about it. If you're Saudi Arabia, why would you ever want to do anything to help the US at this point? When we are saying by 2030, we will all be green, and all
Right.
auto manufacturers are moving green, and we're destroying their way of life at the same time. And when you talk about them publicly saying we're going to join BRICS last week, making the announcement in South Africa, um, why not?
That's a
That whole 80% of human population, they're happy using the combustion engine.
yeah.
And so you're talking about being on the precipice of some very dirty things. And I think those very dirty things center around the dollar losing its petro status. And when that happens, on top of everything we talked about with the inept and impotent Fed, you lose the petro status, the dollars come rushing home because no longer is OPEC. And every one of those OPEC countries are on the Belt Road Initiative, right? So they're all part of this big coalition, this big group. You remove that, and you see massive spike in inflation and a massive corresponding spike in interest rates. And you have a villain that blows everything up and allows us
That
to
is
come
crazy.
to
That is
be.
crazy to yeah, to add on top of what I've always been talking about. If they could weaponize that, that is crazy to think
Well, and it's
about.
going to happen, and you can see it.
Yeah. And,
And they're
and
all positioning for it. That's why they're all buying gold and silver.
that is crazy. So, and honestly, like besides you and I and like the viewers, like this is not known knowledge besides maybe the people that watched your videos. So I do think it's pretty interesting and important that we can put this type of content out there. Especially for you that's been talking about this so much and eyes have been, finally like Robert Kiyosaki being on the show talking about all this stuff, because I do think it's important for people to know this, especially if you are someone that wants to protect your wealth. I mean, a lot of people, like you said, 63% live paycheck to paycheck. Even if you could put $20 in, once a week, you know, buy a couple ounces here and there, it does add up. And buy from Miles Franklin. I mean, it's a perfect company. If you're someone that maybe is struggling financially, even a couple ounces a week or a couple ounces a month definitely does add up fast, and at least you're putting your money into something that holds its value. There is actually a
That
link.
I agree with all of that.
Yeah.
It's also it's also something that the biggest money in the world is accumulating. And the
Oh
reason,
yeah.
you know, I think about this a lot because I've been saying something, of course, it's been evolving the way that I present it, but I've been saying the same thing for over 2 years now. And I'm very consistent. And the reason I'm saying the same thing is that the narrative keeps expanding, following the same path. There's no
Yeah.
deviation from it, and you can see it accelerating. You can see this whole this whole script unfolding. And um, when you see something like Fox News talking about those are the crumbs, it's getting real. And I just need people to ask themselves one important question, and that is, if price was so determinant of value, then why is the entire system being bled dry? If it were so determinant of value and price were a reflection of supply and demand, the world would be drowning in silver right now.
Yeah.
The world would be drowning in gold. And yet you're seeing the biggest money in the world systematically, quietly, under the cover of price suppression and mainstream rhetoric, run away with all of the global supply. And it's happening. And it's happening in a way that is very concerning to me, because it's been very methodical, and it's been happening since 2020, when I started talking about the rise of a group on Comex called the Others that came out of nowhere. And the group the Others is a third group of reportables on the Commitment of Traders report that is believed to be family offices and sovereign wealth funds, and they've been taking distributions and liquidations and deliveries off of the COMEX since 2020, out of nowhere, in amounts that equal as much as a decade's worth of deliveries in a single year. Or last week, 5% of all the gold bars delivered off the COMEX in one day, or the month before that, 45% of all the gold kilo bars that the Asians really prefer, 25 million ounces in one day. Who's got this kind of bread? And if a falling price of something, the way it's been falling since March, was indicative of demand and value, then everything would look different than it does.
Yeah.
Instead, price is the ultimate tool of misdirection. And if you don't wake up to realize that the big money doesn't want you to win, the big money wants to paint a narrative that allows you to go the wrong way, to misdirect you, just like anything that you would ever do where you don't want someone to know what you're doing, you make them think opposite. And that's exactly what the biggest money in the world is doing. And people need to understand this, and it's accelerating.